Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Rachel Stricker, naturopathic physician in Eugene, Oregon, and today I am doing a Facebook Live video on seasonal allergies, living in harmony with your inner and outer environment. So my apologies to anybody who tried to sign on to my YouTube channel, which is Illuminate with Dr. Rachel. I was hoping to be able to post a video on there and start building up some more videos on my channel, but I hit some technical difficulties. It looks like there's something going on with YouTube that I have to have a certain number of followers in order to do the live stream, at least from my iPad. So I'll look into it a little bit, but hopefully I'll be able to do videos there and also be able to maybe post this video afterward and move it over to the YouTube channel as well. So my apologies to anybody who tried to go there first, but I will post this video on my Facebook page as well as hopefully to the YouTube channel once I figure out how to post that too and transfer it over. So I'm gonna go. I was waiting a little bit on the live video to see if I had some more people sign in, but I'm gonna go ahead and just get this started. And if we have some people join in along the way, I welcome your questions at any point in time. If anybody watches the playback of this video later on, you can also type your questions down below and I'll be happy to answer them at some other time, but I'll at least get started on this talk. So, seasonal allergies. I've been getting a lot of questions from patients and friends about seasonal allergies, especially here in probably the last week or two. It seems like the allergens have spiked up quite a bit and people are starting to have issues and starting to have some symptoms now too. And since I have been practicing here in the Pacific Northwest, especially here in Eugene in the Willamette Valley, this is a really high allergen area. There's many reasons for that. Certainly areas that are a valley where they're sitting down below, there tends to be a little bit more allergens in areas like that. And we also are just south of the grass seed capital of the world, so we really are exposed to a lot of grass allergens too. And so I'm sure any of you out there who suffer from seasonal allergens know that it is just no fun at all. You're probably miserable or have been miserable at some point in time in your life. And sometimes it feels like nothing really works, even the over-the-counter things. So I want to talk a little bit about, what seasonal allergens are, how you can live in better harmony with the seasonal allergens, as well as better harmony within your body, and why you may be more affected by these allergens than other people that you know. And I certainly fall into that category. My husband really suffers from the seasonal allergens since we've moved here to the Willamette Valley, and I don't seem to have such an issue with them. And this is kind of how it goes, that some people really have an issue and others don't. And there can be a lot of different symptoms of seasonal allergens too. And so interestingly, I don't have a lot of the, itchy eyes and runny nose or sore scratchy throat or cough or things that are kind of the more typical allergen symptoms. But what I do get is this sensitivity to histamine, which we'll talk about a little bit more in just a little bit. And the sensitivity to histamine can definitely occur as an issue in the brain and in the nervous system, and that's kind of what I end up having with my sensitivity to histamine. So I tend to suffer from more migraine headaches this time of the year. I really see an increase in that happen. Also just kind of like brain fog that can also just kind of increase just sort of this, I would describe it almost as like a fuzziness in my head, or just kind of having these like this just a little like disorientation, and it really is from the histamines too. So that's kind of the symptom that I have more than some of those nasal issues. And we'll talk about some different treatments for the specific issues, the specific symptoms that you have. But let's just talk about the functions and the biochemistry of it a little bit. So, what we see as seasonal allergens, which are really just symptoms resulting from this very complex cascade of chemical messages and signals that are occurring in the body. And so our immune systems are amazing and so complex, but basically what happens is that these seasonal allergens, these pollens, and things like that, come into the body, usually through, the passages. So they're coming in through the nose, they're coming in through the throat, they can come in through the ocular area too, through the eyes. And so it's coming into the body, and the body is basically, the immune system is basically having this overreaction to this pollen, and seeing it as a foreign invader. So our immune system wages these attacks on these foreign invaders all the time, whether it be a virus, whether it be a bacteria, even when we have things like food allergens, those macromolecules of food that haven't been all the way broken down can slip out into the bloodstream through something that we call leaky gut syndrome, and the immune system wages that same attack on that macromolecule of food. So any foreign invader that the immune system isn't recognizing as part of the body, it can wage this attack on it. And so it's this overreaction to that pollen or whatever that allergen is that we're talking about specifically. And this is mediated by the IgE response in the immune system and the Th2 response in the immune system. And so what that basically is doing is activating something called mast cells. And mast cells produce histamine. And so all of these symptoms that we're seeing, whether it be the brain fog and increase in migraines that I have, or whether it be those burning, itchy eyes, or coughing, scratchy throat, all of those symptoms are all just from having this influx of histamine occur in the body. And so that's really where your symptoms are coming from. Now, histamine, mast cells and histamine are pretty widely distributed throughout the body, so they can really be found anywhere in the body, but they're very concentrated in the skin, in the lungs, in the GI. Histamine plays a really active role in the brain. We don't really understand very well scientifically how histamine actually passes what we call the blood-brain barrier, and how it activates in the brain, but we do know that it does play a big role, and histamine actually can play a role even in major nervous system disorders such as anxiety and depression and even mania. So histamine has a strong effect on all of those. So that's where everything is coming from. So a lot of our natural treatments that we do are made for stabilizing and supporting the immune system and for stabilizing those mast cells so that they aren't so overreactive to these foreign invaders or to this pollen, and just releasing histamine all over the place that's causing our symptoms. So that's kind of where everything comes from. So when I think about treating seasonal allergies or treating the symptoms of seasonal allergies that people are having, we think lots about the terrain, and the terrain is the body. And so this is where we really need to come into some harmony with the body, is treating that terrain, those underlying causes. And so, when I'm working with patients one-on-one, and these are patients who have been suffering from, know that they always have a really hard time in the spring, early summer with seasonal allergens, we really try a couple of months before, the trees really start to pollinate around here to try to get that terrain really in place. Now we're a little bit behind on all of that for treating things individually right now, but it doesn't mean that you can't still do things to help, even if you are already suffering from some of those seasonal allergen symptoms. So we're going to talk about diet. We're going to talk about treatment using both herbs and supplements. And the other thing I want to just talk about is, again, giving your body the best chance it can to help stabilize the immune system. So one of the most important things is making sure that all of your detoxification, clearing and cleansing pathways are open and working properly. And so in naturopathic medicine, we talk about these being the emunctories. And so making sure that you are able to sweat through the skin, making sure that you are having good regular bowel movements so you're able to eliminate those toxins through the GI, making sure that you're drinking plenty of water and staying hydrated and you're able to flush toxins, through the urine as well. And then finally, the lungs is the other place that we're detoxifying from. So making sure that the lungs and the respiratory system is really working well so that you are able to respire out those toxins and rid toxins that way. So keeping the emunctories open is really important. And you may need something like liver support as well. And there's lots of things that you can do for liver support, lots of herbs. Milk thistle is one that gets used a lot for liver support, general liver support. I also really like burdock root. You can get fresh burdock root or dried burdock root that you can actually make a tea with. It has a really interesting flavor to it, and it's one of my go-tos for general liver support. Also dandelion leaves and dandelion roots are really good for detoxification. They actually support the liver as well as supporting the urinary system. And turmeric curcumin, which is helpful for the immune system response and allergens, as well as helping with liver support. So those are just some of my go-tos for liver support. Certainly making sure, again, that you're eating a good healthy diet. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. So you are having those good healthy bowel movements, making sure you're getting some exercise, and being able to sweat and do all of that too. And then again, staying hydrated. So that's a big thing too. Another focus that I like to have for treating that underlying terrain is making sure that you are lowering your body's overall burden. So we know that our environment is going to bloom, those pollens are going to be out, all of those things are going to happen. But we want to make sure that you're not having other kinds of burdens. And when we're thinking about these burdens, we're thinking about other types of toxins or other types of environmental toxins. So this is where having a really what we call green lifestyle comes into play. So making sure that you're not using harsh chemicals around your home. So some of the big exposure to chemicals is through our cleaning products, through things like dry cleaning, certainly from off-gassing from new furniture, carpets, paints, all of those kind of things too, and then even the products that you're using on your body too. So that's a big source of environmental toxins and burden too, is these products that we use to clean our hair, to lotions we put on our skin, makeup that we put on our faces, all of that. Those really need to be good, clean, green products as well, so that you're not continuing to put all of those toxins and all of that body burden in, because that's going to take up your toxic load as a whole, which is going to make it more difficult for your immune system and make your immune system more likely to overreact to those outdoor seasonal allergens and that environment too. Another source is also coming from some of those household allergens. So a really common household allergen is dust mites. And people do have issues with dust mites. This is a really common thing. So I do recommend for people who are suffering from seasonal allergies to make sure that you get an allergen-proof pillowcase, cleaning all of your bedding on the regular, using a hypoallergenic pillow as well, and changing your pillows, quite frequently as well, because dust mites are just part of our reality, and that does increase sensitivity for a lot of people. The other thing that I see in homes is coming actually from pet dander. So I love pets too. I've got 2 dogs, and I have a lot of patients who tell me, well, I have several cats, but I am allergic to cats, or, my significant other has a cat, but I still, go over there. And so that can be actually a big source. You can have a very severe allergen to pet dander, or it can be a more minor one. But regardless of whether you really have an allergic reaction to that pet dander, the other thing, even with having environmental allergens, having those outdoor allergens, if your cat or your dog goes outside, that those allergens, that pollen and all of those things also get stuck in their paws and in their fur, and then they bring it into your house. And so if you do have pets, I do recommend that you don't let them sleep in your bed. Cats especially are notorious for sleeping on people's pillows and laying right by their heads. And they do have those environmental allergens, within their fur and within their paws if they're going outside. So, just keeping them out of your bedroom at night is really important. And then, again, with having pets in the home, you should also make sure that you really have some good purification processes. So having good air filters, having a good HEPA filter vacuum, and doing lots of regular changing of those air filters, lots of regular changing of those vacuums and the filters within your vacuum as well. And doing lots of vacuuming around the house. You can even get a filter just to put in your room. In general, a really nice air purifier. I'll put some links to some air purifiers that I really like in the comments below when I post this video too, on some of my recommendations. So that's another great thing to have in your house, especially if you have pets. The other thing I see lots here in the Pacific Northwest especially is mold and sensitivity to mold. So for people who are having a lot of seasonal allergens, that you're having a really hard time using over-the-counters and nothing really seems to be working, you might also want to look into, whether or not you have mold in your home, or maybe just have a burden of toxic mold within your body from maybe other homes that you've lived in previously, because that's certainly going to take up the intensity of your seasonal allergens. Or if you're even a person who maybe it's not just seasonal allergens, but you feel like you kind of have that stuffy nose, that postnasal drip, that sore throat, that brain fog, all year round. Maybe it even worsens a little bit when we are kind of coming in and out of the rainy season in the Pacific Northwest. You might want to also think about seeing if mold burden is something that's affecting things as well. I also highly recommend for people to drink some really good quality filtered water. So not drinking tap water, making sure that you have a good water filter at home. And if you are having a lot of toxic burden, if you are having a lot of issues with allergens or with mold, you probably even want to consider putting a filter on your shower too, because we also absorb, again, all of those toxins through the water into our skin when you're taking showers. So making sure you're drinking really good quality filtered water, and also having some water filtration through the shower, because it does absorb through your skin too. So I think that's all about terrain. Oh, one more thing. The other things of body burden overall can be, I talked about mold, but heavy metals is another one that can cause a stressor on your immune system. So again, if you feel like you just really have intense seasonal allergens that, even over-the-counter medications don't seem to help, or you have those allergens that aren't seasonal and go all year, you might also want to think about testing heavy metals, because that might be something that's also burdening your system, keeping you at those higher toxic loads, and keeping your immune system from working properly. So a few tips on the terrain overall. And having good stress management is important too, because stress actually does also increase our release of histamine within the body too. So making sure that you're taking good care of that mental, emotional health. Stress is terrible for the immune system, terrible for the way the immune system works. And there's lots of good research studies that show that there's a high correlation between stress and immune system dysregulation, immune system dysfunction. So make sure that you're doing lots of good stress management things. You really have to find what works for you. I don't know that there's one thing that works for everybody. I think that getting outside in the sunshine, what might be a little counterintuitive with these seasonal allergens, but in general, time spent in nature is good for the soul. Creative endeavors is huge, and creative endeavors really comes down to finding what your creative expression is. And again, that's different for everybody. It might be music, it might be dance, it might be cooking, it might be drawing, it might be journaling and writing. really anything where you're creating counts as a creative endeavor. And the more that you can be in joy, the more that you can do those creative endeavors every single day, the better stress management that you're going to have. Maybe you need to do some things like counseling or talk therapy as well, to, release past traumas and childhood wounds, and all of those things that, we carry in our mental, emotional body. But being able to manage stress is very important for the immune system too. Okay, I think that we will now start talking about diet. So following a low histamine diet is really important if you are someone who suffers from seasonal allergens. Again, if you can be on this low histamine diet a couple months before everything starts to bloom, that's even better. But, it's not too late. If you can get yourself going on all of that, you can start to, again, lower the amount of histamine that's moving its way through your system. And so what you want to do is really avoid this list of high histamine foods, not forever, but certainly, this time of the year, to keep your consumption either low or none on these high histamine foods. So the big offenders of histamine, really high histamine foods, are things like aged cheeses. That's a big one in the dairy category. Really all of the fermented foods that we think about. Certainly the fermented dairy products like kefir, but also things like fermented vegetables, so things like sauerkraut or pickled vegetables. All of those are really high in histamine and should be avoided if you're suffering from seasonal allergens. There's several things in the fruit category as well. Citrus fruits tend to be the worst offenders of this. So this is our grapefruit, orange, lime, lemon. Strawberries also fall into that category. Pineapple is another one in the fruit category that's really high in histamine. And then the dried fruits are also high in histamine, and consumption of those should be kept very low to keep your histamine levels low. In the vegetable category, things like spinach and olives are high in histamine and are things that you want to keep low. We also think a lot about the processed foods that are really never good to consume, but certainly do increase histamine in the body too. So this is really a lot of the commercially available wheat and gluten products, but especially like those overly processed white starches, white flours, white breads, pastries, all of those kind of things are high in histamine. And then a lot of the just processed meats and canned and smoked fishes, those kind of things. And processed meats are, a lot of the deli meats or the meats that, are common on pizza, the pepperonis, the sausages, all of those kind of things are all high in histamines too. So you want to keep your consumption of those low. Tomato products are another one I forgot to mention in the vegetable category. Margarine and vegetable oils are no good to use. Those are really high in histamine, and I always just recommend people avoid those too. Soy products fall into the category of high histamine foods, especially those really highly processed soy products, and the fermented soy products like the miso and things as well are high in histamine. And then chocolate falls into that high histamine, and as does cinnamon. So also want to make sure that you keep your consumption of those things low. And then the last one in the category is alcohol, especially beer and wine. Those two especially are very high in histamine. So the lesser amounts that you can consume of all of those foods, again, is going to decrease the amount of histamine that you have in your body and be something really good and helpful. Okay, we will now start talking about the main supplements that I recommend. So in this video today, I'm not going to give specific brand names of supplements. There are a lot of specific brands that I work with a lot that I like because they have their therapeutic grade. They have high therapeutic dosing available in their supplements. There are good combination supplements so that you don't have to take 20 things, but you can really just take one or two products that have several of the things that I'm talking about in here. And so the ways that I'm going to help you get access to these things that I highly recommend, because I don't really think in general it's great to just go into a natural food store, grocery store, and, you know, speak to somebody who works in the supplement department or buy those things that are off the counter, because honestly, they're just not of that same therapeutic grade as these great nutraceutical companies that I've worked with for a really long time. I know that these supplements work, and I want people to get the most bang for their buck too. You know, taking a bunch of supplements that don't work isn't helpful, you know, and you're going to end up still having to spend more money on, you know, taking your over-the-counter medications and things like that too. So, you know, being on these really good quality supplements makes a huge difference. I can't emphasize that enough. My other little soapbox I'm going to talk about is that, you know, I really recommend that you get these supplements from a reputable source. So I use something with my patients called FullScript, which is an online supplement store that has all of these nutraceutical companies, their products available on it. And I really recommend that patients buy them through this company rather than buying them from a place like Amazon. Amazon has actually had several lawsuits and several, you know, news articles and issues that some of the products are actually fake. They say that they're from this company, but they're actually like counterfeit supplements, or even just an issue with that supplements haven't been stored properly, especially, you know, supplements who, I mean, some of these herbs and things are sensitive to the way that they're stored, to heat. The homeopathics, especially, which are more energetic medicine, they're really sensitive to the way they're stored. So having them in these big Amazon warehouses, or, you know, being shipped from, you know, third parties who you know, are not storing and processing them correctly makes a big difference, because you may be taking a supplement and there's no longer active ingredients in it. It's no longer working properly. So I'm also going to put something in the comments below that'll give you access to my FullScript, and I'll give you a nice discount code. So actually they end up being more affordable than what you find on Amazon anyways, and then you can make sure you're getting those good quality supplements. So I'll put all of that up for you as well. So my list of supplements that I really are my go-to. So fish oil is a big one. So fish oil does a great job of decreasing inflammation in general in the body. It does a great job of stabilizing those mast cells so that you aren't producing as much histamine. It also helps with something called the leukotrienes, which are an inflammatory action that happens in the immune system too, so it lowers those down as well. So fish oil is always one of my go-tos. You want to make sure that you're taking a really good quality fish oil. Those ones that you find oftentimes in grocery stores are just not very good quality. They have, you know, rancid fish and oils and things in them. And so I get a lot of, when people don't take a good quality fish oil, I get comments that they get the fish oil burps and things like that too from those rancid oils. So you want to take a good quality fish oil, and you need to make sure that you're taking a good therapeutic amount of it. So really like 3 to 4 grams is a good therapeutic amount of fish oil, which usually, you know, from a good quality fish oil, that usually equates to being about 3 to 4 capsules per day of that. Vitamin C is another of my go-tos, also incredibly powerful for the immune system, but also does a great job with the mast cells, and so they're going to stabilize those mast cells and decrease inflammation and decrease the histamine release. You also need to take a good therapeutic amount of vitamin C. I like to do powdered vitamin C's because you can get up to those therapeutic levels a little bit more easily by taking the powder and just being able to mix it in water. Now, most of the time, the therapeutic dosage that we're looking for vitamin C is going to be something like 4 to 6 grams a day, which is like 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams a day. But you have to do something of taking it to bowel tolerance. So vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. So if you take too much of it, you're going to have really loose bowel movements. And so that's where we go to bowel tolerance. So you might try to start out in that 4 to 6 grams a day, but if you have loose stool, you want to back up off that dosage until you're no longer having loose stool. And so that looks a little bit different for everybody. Certainly getting in at least 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C is kind of the minimal that you'll want to take. But if you can get yourself up into that 4-6 gram range, that's really great, as long as you're not having loose stool, in which case you'll want to back off by 500 or 1,000 milligrams until you're not having loose stool anymore. Another one that I really love is something called NAC, or N-acetylcysteine. So NAC is like a super antioxidant in the body. It's a precursor to glutathione, which does so many great things in the body. It's important for the liver and the liver detoxification pathways, but NAC is also a mucolytic, which means that it decreases mucus. So especially if you tend to have a lot of those like watery eyes, watery nose, coughing up a lot of mucus, blowing out a lot of mucus, the NAC is really important for you. NAC usually comes in about 500 to 600 milligrams per capsule, and you're going to want to take, probably about 3 of those a day to get up to a good therapeutic amount of the NAC. And that does a great job for, again, decreasing the mucus, but also works as a great antioxidant, nice specificity for the upper respiratory tract, as well as for the liver and the liver detoxification processes. Another one is quercetin. So you can take quercetin as a supplement. A good 1,000 milligrams a day is wonderful for quercetin. Quercetin is also really high in onions, so you can also make sure that you have plenty of onions in your diet and just get quercetin in naturally that way. And bromelain is another one that is anti-inflammatory, and oftentimes products will be a combination of both quercetin and bromelain. Pineapple is one of the foods that's really high in bromelain, but pineapple is also high in histamine, so I might recommend, instead of eating a lot of pineapple, you would actually want to take the bromelain supplement instead. Okay, probiotics. So probiotics are so important for having good, normal, healthy flora in the gut, making sure that the gut is functioning properly. We talked a little bit earlier about leaky gut syndrome and food allergens. Probiotics are really helpful for healing up that gut lining and helping to make sure that the immune system is functioning properly. As I mentioned, one of the places that histamine is most highly distributed is actually in the GI tract. So we want to make sure that the GI tract, the gastrointestinal tract, is working properly, and probiotics go a long way to make sure that that's happening. Local honey is another good go-to, and you can do local honey. You can also do pollen. Empirically, some people swear by one or the other. Empirically, I haven't seen a big difference for people, using whether they use pollen or honey, but you do need to make sure that it is a local source. So those little bees are out there working hard. They're going from flower to flower, from tree to tree, and so they are getting all of those things that you're having reactions to into the honey, and so that really helps with lowering it down. And so it's sort of an interesting process that I think is very similar to the process that I'm going to talk about next, which is the homeopathic nosodes. So allergen shots are one thing that you can do in the conventional medical world to help with allergens, but another thing that you can do is actually taking these homeopathic nosodes. And so you can get a combination for your region that has kind of the list of the most common allergens in homeopathic form, so in these super, super diluted forms. And it's kind of like this desensitization process that your body is, that you're actually giving to your body and helping the immune system. So it's kind of seeing these allergens in this reduced form on a regular basis, and thereby taking down that severe reaction that your immune system is having to its exposure to the environmental allergens. And so again, you can find this combination homeopathic nosode of those common allergens for whatever region you live in, and those seem to really help people quite a lot, especially if you take them kind of ahead of time before everything starts to bloom. And it's very similar actually to the process that we think of with having allergen shots. So that's another recommendation. Now, if you have really specific eye symptoms, there are a couple of homeopathics that I'm just going to briefly talk about too. And one is Allium cepa, which is actually the onion homeopathic, and then the other one is Euphrasia homeopathic, which is eye bright. And so those two homeopathics have a lot of specificity for the eyes. And so one of them is for more like burning eyes, and the other one is like when you just have like watery eyes but not burning. And so if you have really specific eye symptoms, those might be a couple of homeopathics that you want to check into as well. Let's see, I'm seeing on my list if there's any other ones that we want to talk about. So let's talk about a couple of herbs that are my go-tos for seasonal allergens. So nettles is a huge one. I love to drink nettles just as a tea. It actually is a very nutritive tea, meaning that it has lots of vitamins and minerals that are very readily available through drinking it as a dry leaf tea. And it helps incredibly with seasonal allergens as well. So, and you really want to drink a good amount of nettles. So really like 2 to 3 cups a day. So, if you just have nettles here and there, even just having 1 cup a day, it's probably not going to make a huge difference, especially if you're having a lot of symptoms. So, 2 to 3 cups a day is going to really help. And nettles is so good for you for so many other ways. Like I said, it's really nutrient dense. So that's a great way to do it. If you don't like the taste of it, or you want to just get up into some higher doses of it, you can also do a freeze-dried nettle supplement and consume it that way. Siberian ginseng is another herb that does a great job for allergens. Chamomile is another herb that does a great job for allergens, and parsley is another go-to. And so most of the time, with parsley, you can do fresh parsley or you can do dried parsley, and you want to just, use that in meals too. I briefly talked about turmeric, curcumin. You can take a supplement of this, of course, but I really love for people just to get it in as a food source. And so getting it in as a food source, means, putting it on your food while you're eating it. You can mix it in with, stir-fried vegetables or with sauces. You can also consume turmeric as the Ayurvedic recipe for golden milk, which is probably my favorite way for people to consume it. And so usually a traditional golden milk has some powdered turmeric in it, usually some ginger, black pepper, which actually helps with the absorption of turmeric, and then you include some type of healthy fat. And so in Ayurveda, they often use ghee and regular dairy milk. If you're suffering from allergies, I would recommend staying away from the dairy in general, and you can do more like a coconut oil and, any other kind, a coconut milk or any other kind of alternative non-dairy milk other than soy that suits you well. And so that's a great way to consume your turmeric too. Green tea is another good go-to. Green tea has a ton of research about it being great for the immune system, but it is helpful for calming the immune system down so that you don't have those reactions to seasonal allergens as well. The last 2 things I have on my list to discuss for helpful for allergens is making sure that your magnesium and vitamin D levels are up to par. So vitamin D, of course, is super crucial for our immune system. I see lots of vitamin D deficiency here in the Pacific Northwest. I really like to see people's levels at like 50 to 70 if you get it tested. A good therapeutic dosing over the winter is usually, like 5,000 IU a day. But you do want to make sure that you don't get too much vitamin D in. 5,000, depending on the region that you live in and depending on the time of the year, is probably too high in the middle of the summer or too much if you live farther south than, maybe Northern California. But up here in the Pacific Northwest, I really haven't run into any problems with people taking 5,000 on a daily basis during the winter time. So having your vitamin D levels checked and making sure that you're up in those upper optimal ranges of vitamin D, taking however much that you need to be able to do that. So theoretically, if you take 10,000 IU of vitamin D a day, will raise you up about 1/4 of a point. So you're looking at, raising your level up a couple of points a week if you're taking 10,000 IU. So again, I usually have people in the wintertime take 5,000. I still have several patients that are still on 5,000 right now. We're starting to have a little bit more sun, but people get pretty depleted over the winter time here. So usually can do that 5,000 even into the spring, at least here in the Pacific Northwest. If you're in Arizona or Southern California or Hawaii, that those levels, or taking that amount on a daily basis will probably be a little too high for you. And magnesium again does so many things for the body. I love magnesium, but it is a cofactor for the metabolism of histamine. So it also plays a really important role for seasonal allergens too. So I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully it gives you some ideas about being on a low histamine diet, gives you some supplements. Again, I'm going to give you the link to sign on to my full script with a discount so that you can get a hold of some of those high quality vitamins and hopefully give yourself some support and some relief from those seasonal allergens. Of course, there's lots of over-the-counter antihistamines and other things that people take for allergens, but they don't come without side effects and really aren't things that should be used long-term. And especially a lot of the antihistamines leave people feeling quite foggy and tired, and it's hard to take those for allergens and still be able to kind of function throughout your day. So they're there if you really, really need them, but having to take them every day for several months during the spring every year is a lot for people. So just trying to share some of these natural therapeutics to hopefully give you some relief from your seasonal allergens out there. I see that there's a couple of people signed on. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them while we're on this live video. I am of course going to post this video afterwards, so if you watch the playback of this video and you have some questions, feel free to post them below as well, and then I'll post some comments down there below so that you can have some of the access to information that I shared throughout this video. Let me also say, if you're needing a little bit more individual support, I am exclusively offering telemedicine visits. And so if you're in the state of Oregon, I can see you whether you're a new or established patient. We'll do a telemedicine visit. I use a completely HIPAA compliant platform to do that. So we have a video conference call, and we'll talk about all of your health concerns, to make sure that terrain is nice and healthy that I talked about earlier. So, making sure that the gut is working, functioning optimally, the liver is working optimally, you're not having any issues of heavy burden with other types of toxins and environmental toxins, molds and heavy metals and all of those kind of things too. And I'd be happy to support you in all of that. If you are out of state, I can see you as well. We can talk about that in a little bit more detail. I have to play a slightly different role as my license just covers me to practice medicine in the state of Oregon, but I can work as a health consultant or health coach for out-of-state visits, which we can also do through telemedicine. If that's something that you might be interested in, feel free to reach out to me too. So you can shoot me an email, drrachel@illuminationwellness.com, with your individualized questions, or if you'd like to, schedule an appointment too, or you can post questions below. I also want to say that if you enjoyed this video, if you found it to be helpful for you, I am doing a lot of working from home and telemedicine and kind of changing my practice up and the way that I'm able to present workshops and things, to live audiences. So moving to this more electronic format for now. But if you found this information helpful and you're able to, I would greatly appreciate a donation. I have a PayPal that you can send donations to, drrachel@illuminationwellness.com, or my Venmo is Illuminate, that's ILLUMIN, and then the number 8. So those are my couple of ways to donate so that I can continue to take care of myself and my family and support my small business as we are all going through these changing times. I hope you're all staying happy and healthy out there. Also, if you have other topics, health and wellness topics that you would love to get more information on, I would love to share some more information. So feel free to post below a comment or or to email me if you have a specific health and wellness question or concern that you would love to see me talk about in more detail on one of these live videos. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off for this afternoon, and I look forward to hearing from you and talking to you again soon. Bye.